If you've just installed Hermes Agent, you've most probably had this exact moment, because everybody has it. You open the dashboard and it's a wall of words, models and MCP and Curator and Sol and Cron, and you don't know what's safe to click, what costs money, or what half of it is even for. So this video is every concept you need when you're starting out, walked in the order you meet them on screen. And by the end, every one of those words is something you understand and know the safe setting for, without writing a single line of code. And I'm not going to define these things at you from a list, because Hermes acts on your real accounts and your real files, and you deserve to watch each concept run before you trust it with anything that matters. Nobody at Noose Research is paying me. I use Hermes every day and I rate it, so factor that in when you listen to me. And guys, here's the whole dashboard from top to bottom. And before we touch anything, I want you to see how little is truly here. Every tab on that sidebar comes down to one of about 10 ideas, and you already know most of them from running a business, because this thing is organized like a small company. There's something that thinks there are things it can do, there are ways to reach it, and there's a memory and a set of rules about what it's allowed to touch. We're going to walk them in the order you meet them, and you can set yours up as we go. Let's get into it.
Hey, I'm Johnny Nel. I spent years building businesses the old hard way, managing teams, scaling operations, and doing everything manually. Today, everything I built, from automations and no-code infrastructures to fully AI SaaS products, has AI helping in one way or another. Firstly, let me quickly show you this. In South Africa, we call this a braai. I build with AI tools that, in my opinion, anyone can learn to use. My mission is simple: to help creators, entrepreneurs, and business owners get clarity with AI. Let's build smarter together and enjoy this video.
The first tab is models, and this is the one that decides your bill. I've shown the full model story on this exact setup before, in the GPT 5.6 setup video, and the short version is that Hermes is the body, and the model is the brain you plug in. What you need today is the practical half. So let me swap mine now, because it takes a couple of clicks, and the same agent is suddenly thinking with a completely different model while your skills and your memory and your channels all stay exactly where they were. Now, why should you care about a drop-down? Because Hermes also runs cheaper models in the background for small jobs, like compressing old conversations and reading images, and it saves the strong one for work you actually feel, which is the reason two people can run the same agent and get bills that look nothing alike. I've made that case with real numbers before, and if you're wondering whether you can run more than one model at once, that's mixture of agents. I tested it in the setup video, and it isn't a cost saver, so leave it off. Which model should you start with? Honestly, you start on the default one, and you change models when you hit a wall rather than before. Next come tools and skills, and these two words are most probably the biggest source of confusion on the whole dashboard. A tool is one single action, so reading a file is a tool and sending a message is another one. A skill is basically a playbook that strings those actions together. And when I say playbook, I mean a written procedure the agent follows, the same way a new hire would follow one of yours. So let me pull up the skill screen, because every row on it is a procedure somebody wrote, and that counter at the top is how many mine currently carries. The part that matters for you is that you can teach it your own. So you type /learn, you walk it through the job once, and it writes the playbook itself. There's also a hub of ready-made skills you can install, and you should treat that exactly like hiring, which means you read the procedure before you let it into the building. Does more skills mean a better agent? No, it means more things your agent is allowed to touch. So install what you'll use and let the system clean up the rest, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, the next tab is the one with the 3-letter word on it. And the idea underneath MCP is simpler than the letters suggest. MCP is essentially a standard plug. Before it existed, every app needed its own custom cable to talk to an agent. Now, anything that speaks MCP can plug into anything else that speaks it, which covers your calendar and your CRM and the rest of the stack you already pay for. So what does connecting one look like? The catalog is on my screen, and it's the same shape every time, because you pick it, then you sign in or paste a key, and that's the whole ceremony. Here's the part that changed how I think about this screen. The plug goes both ways. Hermes can also be the socket that other agents plug into with one command. Suddenly your agent is something other tools can call, and you won't need that today, but knowing it exists tells you what the screen really is, which is wiring, not features. Every connection you add wants a key, and a key is a password with no face attached to it. Hermes keeps them in one file out of the chat, and the rule from the last video hasn't moved. Your keys live in a manager rather than a plain text file, and the whole setup for that is linked below. Now, for the two words on that sidebar that sound like science fiction, and both of them are far simpler than they sound. Memory is what your agent knows about you, and it's a small page of facts that loads into every conversation before you type a single word. So a brand new chat already knows your name and your business and how you like things done, and nothing you said in that chat told it any of that. It stays capped at about a page on purpose. So it reads like a briefing rather than a diary. The soul file is who it is, meaning how it speaks and what it stays careful about, and it loads before anything else in the session. And because the soul is just a file, you're allowed to change it. Hermes ships with a whole list of built-in personalities, and one of them is genuinely a pirate. I'm not using the pirate, but the fact that a one-line change gives your whole agent a different personality tells you how this works underneath, because it's all written instructions and you can write them. If you're thinking a single page of facts sounds small, you're right, and that is the design. There are plugin providers for heavier external memory when you outgrow it, and you won't for a while. And guys, everything we're walking through today is already written down on one page. It's the Hermes dashboard decoder, and it covers every word on that sidebar with what it is, the command behind it, and the setting I'd leave it on as a beginner. It's waiting for you inside the AI Founders Vault alongside the community and the assets from the last two videos, and the link is down in the description below. Now, back to the sidebar, because the second half is where this thing starts working without you asking. Remember, I said the system cleans up your skills for you. That's the Curator, so let's open it. Mine is nearly empty, and that's the point, because it only wakes up once the agent has written skills of its own to look after. When it does, this screen is where skills it hasn't seen you use go stale and get archived. The same way you'd retire a procedure nobody has followed since March, and the everyday version of that costs you nothing, because it's simple housekeeping rather than model calls. There's a deeper cleanup mode that does use the model and its ship switched off. That's the whole idea, an agent that tidies its own toolbox and you configure nothing on day one. I'm showing you the word so that when you see it on your own screen, you stop wondering whether it's something you forgot to set up. Cron is the ugliest word on the sidebar and the easiest idea behind any of them, because it just means work on a schedule without you asking. I don't want you taking scheduled work on faith though. This is the run history of one of mine. A boring little job that checks my agent's version every morning, and you can see when it ran and what it found. That history page is your receipt, and once you've got one of your own, you'll stop needing the promise. One more thing mine did this week: when I changed my default model, this job refused to fire until I confirmed which model it should use, and its own error said why. To prevent unintended spend, start with one job that's boring and useful, and let it run for a full week before you add another, because the confidence comes from the run history rather than from the idea. Now, there's one tab people either fear or worship, and sub-agents deserve neither, because this is just your agent delegating pieces of a job. And the whole video I made on that architecture is linked below, so I'm not reteaching it here. What's worth knowing is the part that's new since the July release, because every child agent now writes a live transcript while it works. So instead of watching a spinner and hoping, you can open any child's transcript while the job is still running and read exactly what that child is doing. And that's the difference between delegating and guessing. When do you need this? Later, genuinely, and the only reason to learn the word now is so it stops scaring you long before you need it. Channels are the doors into your agent. So the dashboard is one door, and WhatsApp is another, and Telegram and Slack and email are all doors into the same agent with the same memory. So which door do you open? The one where you already live, and only that one. And when you look down that list, notice how much of it you can leave shut, because every open door is also a way in, and an open door with no gate is a decision rather than an accident. I went deep on rooms and on who's allowed to talk to your agent across the last two videos, and both of them are linked below. Last stretch now, which is where this thing runs, and what stands between it and a bad afternoon. You have two options, and neither needs a purchase today. You can run it on your own machine for free, and the catch is mechanical, because scheduled work only runs while the machine is awake. Or you can run it on an always-on box, so the scheduled work never stops. And that's the entire trade. When your Cron jobs and your channels start mattering, you'll know it's time to move, and you'll know why, which beats buying hosting on day one because a video told you to. Now for the safety word you've been seeing, YOLO mode, which switches the approval system off completely. Leave it off, but I want you to understand what you're actually leaving on, because this one surprised me, and it's the most useful thing in this whole video. Hermes ships with a list of dangerous command patterns written into the code, and a recursive delete matches that list. Here's the part nobody tells you though. Matching the list doesn't stop anything on its own because the approval setting ships on smart, and smart means a small background model reads the command in context and waves through whatever it judges to be low risk. I tested that on my own machine while making this video, and I asked my agent to recursively delete a folder, and it deleted it without asking me once. So if you want to actually be asked every single time, that's one line in your config. You set your approval mode to manual, and now that pattern list has teeth. Most people assume YOLO off means it always asks you first. It doesn't. It means something else is making that call on your behalf. And in my opinion, you want to know that before you find out the hard way. One beginner question I see everywhere is what allow for the session actually covers. And rather than guess at edge cases, I'll give you the rule I use. When in doubt, allow once, because the worst that costs you is being asked again next time. And guys, that approval check guards what runs on your machine, and it does nothing about what the agent can already reach. So every account you've connected and every message it can already send sits on the other side of that check, which is exactly why the deny rules from the last video exist, and that link is below. 3 more ideas are worth a minute before we close, because beginners keep asking about them and they're easy once you see them. If you already use Claude code, one command imports your whole setup into Hermes. And the docs list what comes across. So your instructions, your lady lists, your MCP servers, your skills, and your memories all arrive together. The switch you'd budget an afternoon for was one command and a couple of minutes on mine. Checkpoints, once you switch them on, keep what the help text calls a shadow get repo of your file changes, which is a technical way of saying there's an undo and you can roll back what an agent did to your files. Knowing the undo exists changes how brave you can afford to be while you learn. And goals let you hand the agent an outcome and have it keep working until a judge model agrees the outcome is met, which is the deep end of this pool. So know it's there and swim there later. So what does understanding all of this buy you? It buys you the difference between using this thing and being scared of it. In my opinion, the real shift is realizing these words were never features you have to master, because they're a small company you're learning to manage, and managing is the skill you already have. And you might be thinking, Johnny, do I have to touch any of this on day one? Honestly, no. What it costs you is attention on which model you're paying for and on what you've left switched on. And the version rule from last time still stands, so go and check which release you're on. This machine moved to 0.20, called Herald, before I hit record, and this app has shipped, I think it's like 5 releases in the last month alone. Let's rewind for a second, because you opened a dashboard full of strange words, and every one of them is now a word you understand, and a setting you know how to leave. Models turned out to be the part you swap. Skills are playbooks you can write yourself. Memory is a page you control. Cron is work that happens while you sleep, and the approval that stopped my delete command is the reason this is safer than it looks. So what I'd do today is this. Open your dashboard, leave the model on its default. Teach it one skill with /learn, and give it one boring cron job, because that's a working agent by tonight. Tell me in the comments which word on that sidebar was scaring you, because I genuinely want to know which one to go deeper on, and I'll be reading through them. And if you feel called to it, hit subscribe. And guys, if you want the whole sidebar on one page, that's the Hermes dashboard decoder inside the AI Founders Vault. The link is down in the description below. See you in the next one.